Hello guys, it's Christian from Nordic here. Today I'm bringing you the first installment in a new thing we're starting here on the channel, where every week we're going to upload the deck profiles for the top 2 players at our locals. So typically we are 30 to 35 people per locals currently, so these are actually semi-big tournaments, so that the sort of meta relevance of the deck can be a little bit more telling than other smaller locals perhaps. And this week I won the local going 5-0 playing my Shaddoll deck. So I will go through it a little bit shorter. So I did a similar deck profile with Ingvar, who top 16 at the remote invitational qualifier. But I will go through the deck, and I've made a few changes, mainly the ones that I talked about in the last video. So starting off, we have the Shaddoll engine. Now for dolls, I think the optimal ratio is 8, and I think you should play these ones. 2 Skomata, 2 Wendy, your access to the Shadolls, the Beast and the Hedgehog, your access to resources, that plus for you, and then the Dragon and the Ariel, the stuff that takes things away from your opponent, so the like utility cards. And also for the Shaddoll engine, I played 3 Shaddoll Fusion, and 2 El Shaddoll, and 1 Schism. So Schism, self-explanatory, best trap card in the game, honestly. And my ratio with the L's is a little interesting. So before I used to play only just 3 Shaddoll Fusion, but then I cut some of my consistency or utility cards to add the 2 L Shadolls. And I did this because I used a hypergeometric calculator to find out where the equilibrium point was for if you added another fusion spell or if you added another Shaddoll card, where would the 2 increases in consistency meet. And I found that at this ratio, adding a 3rd fusion spell or a 9th Shaddoll monster increased the consistency the same amount. So that's why I'm playing this particular ratio. But if you guys want a more detailed video about this concept, I'm a physics major, so I can go a little bit more in depth with some of the mathematical stuff if you would like it for the future. So for the Invoked part of the deck, we played 3 Meltdown, 3 Alistair, and 2 Invocation. Honestly, this was just fine. Yeah, you don't rely on seeing this. I'm playing Prosperity as well. I think that card is great in this deck. So you don't want to like go to 7 or anything, because seeing too many of it can be a problem. It's just a nice little supplementary engine, and it allows you to play Meltdown, which is just crazy. It means that like something like Schism is a Dragoon out, or something like Shaddoll Fusion when you're going 2nd will just negate a card on the field and pop a spell or trap or banish 3 and they can't respond, so you typically just make App Cologne. It's really good. Then the Dogmatika part of the deck, played 3 Nadir Servant. This is the reason you're playing the Dogmatikas in the first place, but the fact that there are also light monsters and both of them are extenders is also kind of nice. So from the last list, I've cut Punishment and I'm only playing Fleur. I touched upon it a little bit last time, but I'll mention it again. I think people consider Punishment as like a play starter or consistency card because it gets you access to Schism when you send App Cologne. But I think they forget that Fleur, both being a light monster and an extender, can also boost consistency, both by being a fusion material for construct, but also if you have a Shaddoll in your hand and a normal summon, you can normal summon Fleur, make Verde Anaconda, and then send Shaddoll Fusion and get access to your Shaddoll engine that way. So I think people forget that when they consider Fleur. Also, it means you're playing effectively 4 more Dragoon outs in the deck, which is nice. Not that you struggle like that much against Dragoon, but it is still kind of nice, especially in local tournaments. Then I played my favorite card in the deck, and the tech that I'm very proud of to have found. It's a 3 Pot of Prosperity. Like this deck is like a 3 engine kind of deck. So you want the games where you win is when you see multiple engines in your hand. If you see 2 engines, you're very likely to win. If you see 3 engines, you've basically won. So you want that to happen as much as possible. And outside of being like 3 engines with very, very high impact power cards, the fact that we're also playing a fusion deck where you need multiple materials and a fusion spell, this card also synergizes through that mechanism, so that this card is just so good in the deck, and I would honestly really recommend you to play it. However, never banish more than 3 with it, because you also do need the extra deck a little bit. Now for the last section, the counter cards or hand traps, or however you want to call them, I played 3 Nibiru, 3 Gamma, and 3 Super Poly. So the nice thing about this deck, it can play counter cards to the meta that synergize with its own engine. So Super Poly synergizes because it makes your Shaddoll's life on field while also breaking boards. Gamma's nice because it acts like 3 more Called by the Graves for all your power spells, but it's also fusion material, and if you're going second, like a lot of stuff you activate, if they have negates on board, you can Gamma it, because they are typically going to want to negate Meltdown, because otherwise they can get Shaddoll fusion, then they can't respond. And then you can chain Gamma in that scenario, or something like Nadir Servant, or a lot of cards, honestly. And then the Nibiru. The Nibiru is nice because if it resolves, you have a light monster on field. You never have trouble getting over the token because Construct can pop it with its effect. And as opposed to other decks, like the hand traps in this deck and the counter cards actually indirectly boost consistency because of the synergy with making Construct and things like that. So very happy with this, but I would not try to squeeze in more, because that's when the consistency can start to get hurt quite a bit. I think 10 counter cards is sort of the upper limit. You can start pushing it in this deck. Now for the extra deck, played 2 Constructs, 2 Epcalone, and 2 Winda. Since we're playing Prosperity, the 3rd Construct felt a little bit moot. Typically, you'd have to banish it off Prosperity anyway, so it made more sense to just play a utility card instead, so that you could banish it, but then have it in the matchups where it was needed. Played for Invokes, we played 2 Mekaba, 1 Algoidius, pretty standard, really good cards, would not cut any of it. For Links, played Verta Anaconda. This card's crazy. It helps you go first sometimes, but it also helps you push in the mid game, and if you resolve a Shaddoll fusion, you typically have enough material on board to make this to resolve another Shaddoll fusion, which can just be crazy. Artemis, the Shakira Gardener, except it's linkable, so it's very good. And Gravity Controller. Now I can also say for other formats, maybe you could play Selene and Access Code and Cross Sheep. Very good combo in the deck as well, but I prefer to play the Verte in the current format, especially also because the synergy with Super Poly, because Verte now removes any monster on field because it can turn it dark, and then you can send Super Poly and you can make this. This card's nice because Super Poly means that the virtual world players, if they play around Gamma by making 2 VFD, they play into Super Poly, and if they play around Super Poly by only making 1 VFD, they play into Gamma. So you basically want to cut off their consistent options at least. And also, a lot of people are not expecting Super Poly, so they'll naively make 2 VFD and you'll just take them. And the last 2 are sort of flex spots. This is less important now because I've cut Punishment from the main deck, but it's still nice to be able to send it with Nadir Servant. And then the Radiant comes up in theory because you can Invocation with the Wendy, and you can take the wind monsters away like the Shen in the virtual world matchup. Also, it's nice to be able to Super Poly if they make the barrier statue and stuff like that. Now for the side deck, play 3 Ash. This is just meant as like a general put-in card to take out the Nibirus. Also against the virtual world, their main weakness is the consistency, so play a generic consistency hitter for that deck. Then also for virtual world, and going second and first, 3 Torrential, but also for any combo deck if you're going first, 3 Torrential is pretty good. Then 3 Dark Ruler. It's more generic than Droll, and you don't really have trouble playing through 2 orange lights in the hand in that matchup anyway, so why wouldn't you just play this where you have a 16% higher chance to see it in your hand because you can draw it, and they can't play around it with like instant fusion called by the 3 Herald of Iron Lights. Like there's a lot of ways around the Droll, but there's not around this card. 3 Lightning Storm, just anti-back row stuff. 1 Duster, 1 Evenly. So yeah, anti-back row stuff. All of it's sort of for going second, because against the back row decks, I would just go second, play this, and then 3 Prosperity and have a pretty good chance to see it. And the last card is a Punishment. This was for going first, but honestly it should be another evenly matched. I just happen to not own one, which is quite embarrassing. but I hope I somehow still managed to win despite playing against like 3 back row decks this local. But yeah, that's my Shaddoll list. I'm excited to start this series with putting up more decks every week from the locals, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. And then I guess I'll see you in the next video.